It's not a matter of if a disaster will strike, but when. So having this stockpile is great. Water, you want 1 gallon per person and per pet per day. Yeah, that adds up really quick.
Yeah.
Your grocery store, the neighborhood grocery store, stores enough food for 3 days, maybe 4. So if somebody beat you to it, that's it. You don't have any food. So buy extra. If you always get this brand, buy 3 or 4 more and put them in the back of the cabinet. When you reach for one that's in the back of the cabinet as your backup, go buy another and put it in there. Make sure it's something you eat. Don't get the 10-gallon or 5-gallon, which seems like, the gallon tin of like pinto beans in brine, unless you really love pinto beans in brine, and so does your whole family, so that you would open up and eat it. And my husband and I just transitioned during this event because we went to a mostly carnivore diet, and we hadn't shifted our storage to reflect that. So we bought brisket, and lamb, and duck, and you name it. And it's a critter. It's probably in our freezer right now. And I also have 50 pounds of salt in case the power goes out and I need to salt whatever it is. And I've got how-to books, the Foxfire series of books. So in case the internet is down, I can at least look up how to do different things around the house.
So smart, including salting meat.
Including salting meat.
Wow, that's such a good tip. Today's show is brought to you by our pals over at blueblocks.com, leaders in protective eyewear to help you filter out some of the LED and synthetic light that is affecting your biological rhythms and affecting your eye health. So if you're like me, your screen usage right now with everything that's going on is probably high. You're on your cell phone, you're checking email a lot, you're working from home, you're trying to watch the television to see what's going on with our work and our life and this whole COVID-19 pandemic. So you probably should be protecting your eyes. So I've been a huge fan of protective eyewear for a very long time. And I like Blue Blocks because they actually scientifically test and validate their lenses to make sure that they're filtering out the yucky lights and the LED wavelengths that could be perturbing not only your sleep, but your eye health overall. We're learning so much more about eye health. So I would encourage you to invest in your health. I mean, these things can range from, on the low end, $87 up to, depending upon how fancy you want to get, up to $160 some odd dollars. And they also can customize your prescription so that you can get prescription blue light filtering glasses, which is great. So I would definitely invest in a pair of these if you don't. I have 3 different pairs that I wear based upon what I'm doing, the time of the day, and all that. And you'll notice at the end of the day, you don't have that digital eye strain, which is linked with all kinds of issues in the eye. So please support your eye health, support your body's circadian rhythms, and support our podcast by going to blueblocks.com. And you can enter in the coupon code HIH at checkout. Again, that's BLUBLOX.com. And please enter the coupon code to save 15% off at checkout, HIH. So in today's show, we're catching up with Nancy Carpenter. Nancy is absolutely amazing. She's been doing our show notes for this podcast since we started. We met on Facebook a very long time ago, 2014. She's absolutely amazing. She really walks the walk. She's a backyard gardener. We co-created a course, which will be linked below. And she shares some amazing tips here that a few months ago, you probably wouldn't have ever thought you would need to understand and know. But right now, with everything that's going on, it's a great time to ensure that you're prepared for the unexpected. I don't want to scare you, but JBS Meat, for example, other major food companies are having employees that are infected. Our food supply, our water supply, you never know what could happen should this current situation spiral unexpectedly out of control. So I don't want to scare you, but I think we should all be prepared. I'm definitely, I've acted on a lot of the things that Nancy shares in this podcast since we filmed it, and it's a great discussion. Links and show notes are below. So you can fast forward to the key time points that you want. But it's a really informative discussion. I hope you give it a good listen. And let's cut back to it and talk all things emergency preparedness with Nancy Hovan Carpenter. Nancy Carpenter, it's great to have you on the podcast again to talk all things about preparedness, emergency preparedness. What a better time to, it's almost maybe even too late in some senses for some things. I don't want to scare people or anything, but you're a master gardener. You grew up on a farm. We've shared some videos about collecting chicken eggs and things like that. People really like that, the coating that you talked about on the egg. But just background and perspective for people listening, you've listened to pretty much every podcast we've put out since 2014. And I'll just share the story if you don't mind, like how we met. So I've been known for grammatical and typo errors. And after correcting me in a very polite manner on a few Facebook posts, I can't remember what I said. I messaged you. I go, "You're great. Like, let's work together or something." And you were like, "Yeah, cool." Cause you listen to a lot of podcasts. So, for people that don't know, you've been doing the show notes for a very long time, 6 years. And we've done a few other events, the Autism Intensive and everything like that. And we have this course that we'll let people know about, the Backyard Garden School, which I think is great. Cause a lot of people are realizing that, man, they've kind of delegated their food. They've offloaded that responsibility, to other people. And the prospect that maybe there could be potentially, whether it's long-term or short-term food shortages, I think is a scary thought for a lot of people, myself included. So anyway, just want to thank you for your friendship and all the great work that you've done over the years.
Well, thank you. And one of the things I've done for the last 20 years is I have been a disaster preparedness and response instructor. Outreach to the community. I teach the FEMA course, CERT, Community Emergency Response Team. And that involves disaster preparedness, small fire suppression. We have you out there with a fire extinguisher, putting out a fire, and disaster medical, so that you can walk into a room where there are multiple injured people and try to and figure out, using this template, who needs the most help, who is beyond your help, who's just complaining, and be able to sort all of that out within, a 60-second or 30-second visit with each person. Very powerful. How to set up a treatment area, how to take care of dead bodies if you need to. It's an incredible course. Disaster psychology, which we'll talk a little bit about today, and terrorism awareness, and also incident command, which is the chain of command structure in case there's a response. Mm-hmm. Now, you and I have we've been texting back and forth about the response that people have had to this. Yeah. And that's what prompted me to send you a text back that said, we need to do a podcast on this. Because one of the things we see are people hoarding things that are not in sync with what their needs really are, and responding emotionally in a way that isn't safe for them. And that's when I said, you know what? They just don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. They haven't been instructed. If they've taken a CERT class or other classes through their local jurisdictions, then maybe they do know, or maybe they just have that drive to be able to be a prepper or at least be prepared. But most of us really aren't. No. And that's what I'd like to go over today. I would love to unpack that. Maybe just the mindset and the behavior, the impetus to hoard and start collecting things. Is that just kind of a natural human response when things become uncertain, that people are like, oh my gosh, toilet paper, all these seemingly unnecessary things? And like you said, I mean, if it comes down to there's a shortage in toilet paper, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Nancy, it seems to me that there would long be a food shortage or shortage before the toilet paper is. Am I thinking along the right lines? Or yes, one roll a week. I read the container today, because I was trying to figure out how many rolls I have just in case. No, I'd be. Is
that for carnivore people or keto people, or no? I'm just kidding. Right.
And on the package it says one roll a week, so I'm good for about 90 weeks, which is a lot of toilet paper. Yeah. But that's how much I've had. I haven't bought any since then.
Me neither.
Part of being resilient. We want to be resilient with our bodies so that we can bounce back when there's a hit. We want to be able to be resilient with our finances so that when there's a hit, we can bounce back. And we want to be able to be prepared so when something like this social distancing comes along, or an interruption in foods, the supply chain, electricity, water, whatever it is, we can bounce back. Now, the difference between an emergency and a disaster is that when you have an emergency, you call 911 and help arrives within minutes, depending on where you live. Could be a lot of minutes, could be short minutes. With us, it's about 10 to 15 minutes, and help is here. In a disaster, that's not the case. It's tantamount to having a large apartment complex fire. Mm-hmm. When you have that in your town, your resources are overwhelmed, and the fire departments from other towns come in, other cities, and they help. But in a disaster, it's as though Everybody has an apartment building fire, and they're not coming. But that means that not only now is your fire department or your EMS overwhelmed with this one event, they can't help you. So you really have to be prepared.
It's very true. I was talking with a fireman yesterday that they're not responding to non-emergent calls. Like normally, Sally Smith can't get up off the ground, or, there's a lot of things that firemen help out and EMS, first aid responders help out with that are non-emergent, but they're only responding to like a heart attack or someone's unconscious or found they might be dead in their house, right? So like everything, this is already happening now. And I think this whole COVID-19 hasn't really even taken off yet. Like, not that I want it to, right? But it's like things could get way worse. And so you're right. I think we've kind of offloaded that responsibility to someone else, seemingly in our mind. Is it because we kind of think, oh, that's never going to happen? Like when it gets that bad, then I'll worry about it. Is that kind of the mindset?
A lot of us haven't even gotten to that point yet. Here's a great story. Rookie cop called to a bar fight. Just outside the bar, this guy had been stabbed quite a few times. But when he got there, he realized that this man had no defensive wounds on him. But he'd been stabbed 6 or 7 times. So the police officer asked him, why didn't you try to defend yourself? Why didn't you run away? And the man said, well, when he stabbed me and the knife went in, I just couldn't believe it had happened. And then each time it went in, I just looked down and went, I can't believe this has happened. Because he never considered the possibility. And so if you at least consider the possibility, when you sit down in the movie theater, look at the exit and figure out your plan for how you're going to get out of there. All of a sudden, you have considered it. If during that movie it happens, you've got a plan. Just something as simple as thinking about it will help you.
Mm-hmm. So key. I mean, remember that Colorado was in Aurora about, I want to say 5-6 years ago, folks were watching, was it Batman? And someone came in with an AK-47 and just like mass shooting a lot of people. But yeah, I don't know the stats and who ran for the door or whatever, but personally, I'm always thinking about that. Like even on an airplane, when I'm in a public place, like, and maybe that is because when I was younger, I was, on the streets, like I got in street fights and stuff like that. So I'm just trying to think, like, if you've never been in a situation that's been uncomfortable, maybe you've never had to think like that. So I think it's helpful to, again, you don't have to walk around scared necessarily, but just be a little bit more, okay, I'm in a new situation. If something bad happens, where do I go? What would I do?
And Mother Nature wired you with these instincts. She wired you with instincts to be wary of people who act strange. When your gut, that you have to trust your gut, even though you're saying that is not correct. I need to be nice to this person because it's correct. But if your gut is telling you something is wrong, then you trust your gut and something is wrong.
Now that aspect, we can dive into Reiki and your energy medicine work if you would like to, but why don't we trust our guts often?
Because we're so invested in our society and we try to be such a polite society, I think. There's a really good book called The Gift of Fear by Gavin DeBecker. And it talks about trust your gut. If you're about to get in the elevator and the person in there, you get that hair on the back of your neck stands up, even if it'd be impolite for you, even if it's some ethnic issue, whatever it is, just back off and say, no, thanks. I'll catch the next one, because you have to trust their gut. And that's one of the things I teach in part of the search and rescue class is after, say, an earthquake or an explosion, is it safe to go into a building? And one of your key way to tell is your gut. If you're looking at a building and you're saying, well, there's not a whole lot of damage here, it's probably safe, but inside, your brain is picking up all kinds of information that it hasn't processed for you yet. But if your gut says don't go in, then don't go in. You need to learn to trust it. But now a lot of people are they're in fear. They're in fear. So what are some of the easy things, because they haven't been educated and they have no storage at home of extra food and what that might look like. So they're just grabbing toilet paper, water, and I look at them taking toilet paper and water and saying, yes, that means that when the big earthquake hits, because we're in the Pacific Northwest, that means that they'll have toilet paper and water. Right. They may not need it now, but they will need it then.
Yeah. So you're looking at it from a positive perspective.
Absolutely.
Going back to there's this book I'm reading about the subconscious mind, and you're like what we pick up on, like you're saying, like there's some tangibles that we can talk about, eye color and these different things, but just these nonverbal cues and these expressions, like you're saying, our brain is processing these.
Yes.
But we haven't yet, like the chain of command hasn't articulated that or characterized that in something that we can intelligently talk about. So those feelings of uncertainty where like, whoa, this situation could be hairy, are the nonverbals that our brain is trying to tell us, but we don't yet have definitive ways to articulate that mentally or internalize that.
Yes, one of the Unabomber packages arrived at an office, and the receptionist was looking at it, and she just got a strange feeling about it. And so she said, "Hey, everybody, come on over here and look at this package." So everybody crowded around to look at this strange package. And one of the guys laughed, and he said, "Nope, I'm out of here because that might be a bomb." So his brain was telling him, and it bubbled out as laughter and joking, and he walked away, and he was one of the few that wasn't hurt. Yeah.
And the bomb went off shortly thereafter.
Yes.
I don't know if I told you this story. It's related to that. So someone broke into our house. I think it was someone that I hired to help with different things. And I know we're kind of getting off topic, but I want to weave it back into this narrative. We went to the gym, came back, and Deanna was like, "Mike, someone has been in our home." And I was like, "Come on, give me a break. Like, we just went to the gym for an hour. That's impossible." So we went to 21 acres, got some seeds, got a few things. It was a Saturday, and came back, and she's like, "Mike, I'm telling you, someone was here." And I was like, "Dude, Deanna, look, half the time you don't know, with all due respect, where your gym bag is anyway. How do you know he was here?" She was like, "My computer's gone." And then she started pointing out things that were definitely gone. So she knew that. And so are women a little bit more intuitive with this, with these nonverbal cues or these things that our subconscious brain is picking up, would you say?
Probably. You know the joke, the man opens the refrigerator and he can't find the food that's right in front of him because it's not moving. That whole primal thing of I can hunt when that thing is moving. I don't know.
Yeah.
It could be.
It's interesting.
That women are more aware of their environment. I can't really speak to it, but it's probably true.
Yeah.
We're nesters.
Yeah. I mean, there's something to that. Anyway, so getting back to kind of the basic needs, right? And then we can transition to more disaster preparedness. What are some things that we should maybe, presumably people have gotten toilet paper and things like that. Canned food, seeds. I mean, what are some things that water filtering systems, like what should we be stocking up on, whether or not we need it for COVID or something else?
That's right. Every state in the union and probably every country around the world will have disasters. It's not a matter of if a disaster will strike, but when. So having this stockpile is great. Water, you want 1 gallon per person and per pet per day. Yeah, that adds up really quick.
Yeah.
It does. And where Mike and I live is on the Cascadia subduction zone, which is where we have 9.0 earthquakes. 9.0, like the one that hit Japan and Indonesia, the big subduction earthquakes. They last 3 to 4 minutes. The estimates are that our supply chain will not be restored until at least about 3 months. Wow. So going 3 months without supplies coming in or out. Your grocery store, the neighborhood grocery store, stores enough food for 3 days, maybe 4. So if somebody beat you to it, that's it. You don't have any food. So buy extra. If you always get this brand, buy 3 or 4 more and put them in the back of the cabinet. When you reach for one that's in the back of the cabinet as your backup, go buy another and put it in there. Make sure it's something you eat. Don't get the 10-gallon or 5-gallon, which seems like, the gallon tin of like pinto beans in brine, unless you really love pinto beans in brine, and so does your whole family, so that you would open up and eat it. And my husband and I just transitioned during this event because we went to a mostly carnivore diet, and we hadn't shifted our storage to reflect that. So we bought brisket and lamb and duck and you name it. And it's a critter. It's probably in our freezer right now. And I also have 50 pounds of salt in case the power goes out and I need to salt whatever it is. And I've got how-to books, the Foxfire series of books. So in case the internet is down, I can at least look up how to do different things around the house.
So smart, including salting meat.
including salting meat.
Wow, that
Yes.
50, that's such a good tip. No one's even brought that up. Sam and I were just talking about salt actually, but yeah, I mean, who's stockpiling salt? No one. It's toilet paper and Doritos and stuff like this. I mean, my goodness. So I've worried about that a little bit, because we have pigs and all, stuff in the freezer. If the power goes out, we don't have a generator. My friend has a generator, but that's noisy as heck. I don't see myself running that all the time because if the power's out, probably gas will be a finite resource as well.
Oh, gasoline, yes.
Gasoline, right? So a generator's not going to do much good there. So have you ever salted meat before?
I have not, but
Interesting.
I'm smart enough to figure it out if
Figure
I
it
have
out.
directions.
That's how people have done it.
That's right.
And you can ferment meat too, right? I've heard of that.
That's right. And if you do canning of jellies and things like that, a lot of people do, you can also can meat and put it in the jars.
Are you going to look into that?
No, my mom used to can the venison and things like that, and she said that botulism can be such a problem, and the seals have to be absolutely perfect on them that she just started freezing it.
Yeah, it's easier.
And the salt is in 25-pound bags that I got at Costco.
Wow.
Yeah,
Like Morton's table salt or something
it's
like that?
what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of our show sponsors, Redmond Real Salt, they do sell wholesale, big, large. I think they're 25-pound bags too. So yeah, there's options out there for sure. But that's a great tip. Just curious, when did you buy the salt? Pre-corona? Or?
Oh, definitely. It's
Okay.
been about a year or so.
I was just curious to see like if the salt, I've been looking at sugar and the flour and the bread sections diminishing quickly. I'm very curious to see if the salt is, anyway, yeah, very fascinating. So that's good. What about like canned sardines and things? That seems like a reasonable.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes, I looked at the tuna and I have what I call a prepper pantry, which is the spare bedroom closet. And so I've got lots of tuna and things like that in there. Canned vegetables as far as high antioxidant, black beans, red beans. I've got cans of those. Canned mushrooms. I try not to go canned, but look, it doesn't need refrigeration.
Yeah.
It'll stay there. And what I did recently was I pulled out all the 2019 stuff and I just took it to the food bank. Because it's still good past expiration. If you go way past, then the quality of it, the nutrition doesn't hold up, but it's still decent quality a few months after that expiration date.
Sure. So you just gave it away and reloaded what you had. What else? I mean, seeds and things? You have probably a lot of seeds anyway.
Oh, yes.
As a
I do.
gardener.
Yes, I do. And I've got baby seeds started in the garage and lots of greens that are coming up, and I can already forage, and so could you.
Yeah.
Dandelion and the raspberry leaves make a really good tea, and shotweed. But we're talking to people who are all over the country, so you've got things that are growing around you that you can forage. Give it a try. A lot of them are bitter. Our ancestors didn't eat the sweet crap we do. They ate bitter things, and they're good for you, and that actually stimulates digestion. So it was a win-win to do the bitter things, and so try to acquire a taste for the bitter, for what's local, and see what's out there. Get foraging books. You can still order those. You don't have to go out and buy them. So you can order them and just go out with a book and walk around the yard or the neighborhood and see what you can find and try it out.
It's very smart. I mean, I think it's good. A lot of people are still hiking and getting outside, but what a great way to add some novel stimulus to your hike. So you're keeping your brain active instead of, not that there's anything wrong with zoning out per se, but since getting into the whole mushroom thing, now I'm always looking for mushrooms and seeing the polypores and the reishi and, all these things in our area. And those could be
I've got
food.
Turkey tail.
Turkey tail.
Yeah, lots of turkey tail in my backyard.
That's awesome.
And that makes a very potent tea. I mean, as far as potent
For the
as far as
body.
effects, yes.
Yeah. I guess it's purported that Native Americans use that if people had cancer or immune issues. So that's kind of the folklore behind turkey tail. Yeah, I mean, but again, if you don't expose yourself to this, you may not think you'll ever need it. I mean, that's kind of the thing. And now I'm so grateful that I know what's poisonous, what's not, how to identify these things. And it didn't take very long. These are, and it makes hiking more fun. So you can point these things out, which is great. Water. So a gallon per day per person.
And pet.
Yeah, man.
Although each of your chickens will not take a gallon of water.
You're right.
You can probably all the chickens 1 gallon of water, and they probably won't drink it in a day.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of water. And that was one of the things that were flying off the shelf were the cheap little water bottles, those plastic water bottles so that your water is infused with plastic and the estrogens and all of that. And granted, if that's all you've got, actually that'd be great for hand washing.
Yeah.
And speaking of hand washing, the hand sanitizer was another thing that's been flying off the shelves. And hand sanitizer, if you look it up in the Environmental Working Group's Skin Deep database, hand sanitizers have all kinds of chemicals in them. What the active ingredient you're going for is the alcohol. So the higher the alcohol content, the more effective it is. But if you read anything from CDC or any reputable place, they will tell you that using hand sanitizer is subpar. I mean, it might be better than washing your hands in a puddle. Really. Because at least in a puddle, you're washing the stuff away. Right. What you want to do is wash your hands in warm, soapy water. Do the backs of your hands between your fingers. Even if you have jewelry, take it off. Work that and wash your hands. And that will help you. And our healthcare now, if you've been to the doctor, squirt, they put it on all day long. That's a lot that's being absorbed into the body. So if you have no access to warm water with soap, then yes, use the hand sanitizer because it's better than nothing.
I mean, maybe I'm going to sound irresponsible by publicly stating this, but I have not used hand sanitizer in probably a couple of years, and not even with this whole thing. I mean, I understand why people are concerned about it, but there's unintended consequences like you're talking about. And yeah, the ethanol could be driving in the phthalates, the perfumes. I mean, every brand is probably a little bit different in what sort of agents they're using in there. But yeah, you're exposing yourself to whatever it is, endocrine disrupting chemicals that come with their own set of consequences, right? So I think, hopefully I don't get in trouble for saying that out loud, but we always have to think about trade-offs, right? You don't want to fix one thing to harm another. Every time we come back in the house, washing the hands and everything along those lines.
Yes. And my niece, she's a nurse practitioner in an emergency room in a hospital, and she was just posting that she's wearing a hairnet because the particulates from the COVID virus they'll stay suspended for 4 hours and they can cling to your hair. So if your hair is falling in your face, it's another reason and a carrier for bringing this into your face. So they're wearing hairnets in the ER to keep that out of the face. And I came back on and said, and this event is a great inspiration for showering at night. Because you've gone out to the grocery store, you've picked up whatever was suspended in the air, and you come home, and that night you roll into bed, and you've brought it all into your bed. But you've not only brought in pathogenic virus, pathogenic bacteria, allergens, and pollutants. All of those things, if you haven't showered before you go to bed and washed well, then you're bringing all of those things into your bed night after night after night.
Wow.
I grew up on a farm. We were out in the barn, and we were really dirty by the end of the day, and no one in the house was allowed to go to bed without showering. So that has become a habit, but yeah, that should be
not for everyone though.
Yeah.
I mean, if you didn't have that exposure, there would be no impetus to take the shower. So, and now kids aren't playing and stuff, so they're probably, playing sports and it's been canceled, but what a great thing to know that, kids, we have Nez in the shower too. Not every single night, but she's often very dirty from messing around with the chickens or doing whatever. And so we, want her to go to bed clean. So,
yeah. So as adults though, we go off to work, we ride the bus, we walk down the street, and we're picking up all this stuff on our skin and our hair. And then we bring it to bed at night. So please shower at night.
It makes sense. Yeah.
It really does. But I think most of us do shower in the morning because it somehow wakes us up. So work on your circadian rhythm.
Go in get a cold plunge. Yeah, do something like that.
Get more sleep.
Right, totally. Well, okay. So it seems to me, if I'm thinking of, if there's a family of 3 or 4 children, stockpiling that much water is gonna be tough, right?
That's right.
So what about filtration devices? What about rainwater collection barrels? I have quite a few of those. What are some things what are you guys doing?
We have life straws. So you can actually just stick the straw inside that bucket of water or whatever it is, and you can drink out of it. It does not strain out viruses, and it does not strain out chemicals. So you might still want something that's going to kill those things off. Bleach is used for purification for water, But the problem with bleach is, well, A, it's bleach.
Yeah.
But B is that from the moment it's manufactured, bleach loses its potency. If you look at your bottle of bleach, the date on it is the day it was manufactured. And I called Clorox about this because I'd read a bunch of different conflicting things. And they said, once it has reached 4 months past that date, whatever formula you look up for purifying your water, you will need more bleach because it has lost enough of its potency. So if you're using bleach to purify water, you want to make sure that you can smell the bleach. If you can't smell it, add a little more.
But I sense a problem with using bleach, to be devil's advocate. So do you then reboil it, or you're drinking bleach, or because it's reacted with the water, it's diluted, that it's not a problem?
Yeah, it dissipates.
Oh, so you don't really taste it? Have you ever had?
No.
All right,
No.
this is like an
I've
emergency.
lived in places like Los Angeles where it seemed like I was drinking.
Yeah. Arizona, Scottsdale. Oh my gosh, you drink the water there. You're like, what happened to this
Am
water?
I drinking the pool?
Sorry, Arizona, we love you, but still.
Same with California.
Yeah, I know.
But how do you store it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one. And it is a tough one for people. I'm a bargain hunter, and whenever the San Pellegrino goes on sale, it'll be like $4 off a case. And I'm putting it in the garage and in bedrooms and closets and under beds if I can, because that is not just water, but it's water with good minerals in it. So I've got a stock there. But you can get containers. You can order containers that are made, don't get gasoline containers, because they are not food quality plastic. Not that in many people's book is there ever anything that's food quality about plastic. However, you can get these containers that don't allow light in them. You don't want light to get to your water. It needs to stay dark. And your water, if you don't put table or tablets that are purification tablets in them, and to help them store preservatives. You can put preservatives in the water, and you're good for 5 years.
Wow.
As long as you put that water in there, put a little preservative in, and actually, as long as your container's clean, your water is clean, check with your local emergency manager or website, but it should be good for 5 years.
Amazing.
As long as the light doesn't get to it and your container stays intact.
Would the light allow mold and things like that, or
Algae
to grow? I see. So that's the importance.
Yeah.
So that's
And if you have water bottles and the sun is hitting them, like in the summer when it gets nice and hot and they say, hey, we put out all the water bottles out here in the sun. Do you ever taste that? It tastes like plastic because it actually speeds up the process of releasing the plastics into the water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why I don't have a lot of hard limits on certain things, but plastic and water and plastic, I'll drive to go way out of my way to get glass. What about, so I have a little stereo pen. So it's a way to sterilize for camping and hiking, things like that. Mm-hmm. So I recommend people get that. I mean, because you never know. I mean, look, if I like the idea of collecting water like you do, I don't see myself personally doing that. I don't know why. I just think like, gosh, because I had the rain barrel collecting system, so I could boil that, use a stereo pen. Mm-hmm. It would be very cumbersome, but so anyway, just trying to give people ideas there.
And if you want your water really clean, do the distillation. So you've boiled it, the steam comes up and the steam condenses, and that is a much purer water.
I'm sure there's little homemade distillation systems you could probably buy or something.
Or you could rig something up.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's a really good way to go about it.
And don't go for the sodas and the juice and things like that, because when it has sugar, or even when your brain thinks it might have sugar, it actually increases your thirst, which also increases, here's a segue, your need for toileting. Mm. And that's a big thing. I had an instructor say there's only 2 kinds of kids in a disaster, the ones that got to go and the ones that just went. Mm. So toileting can be an issue. If the water is out, it could be that you can't flush your toilet. Uh-oh, we're in trouble now. Mm-hmm. However, it's so cheap to just buy a roll or a few rolls of large biohazard bags, and you can use them to line your toilet. Mm. So you're there in the comfort of your own throne, taking care of business, and then you can, but you'll get used to the smell after a little while, because you'll run out of bags every time.
Right. It might help you in the first couple of days, but then
yes,
you have to Face the music and
there are some things, years ago, there was the WAG bag. There are things that you can just, drops that you can put in, like a little canister of something, and it actually turns the biohazard into not a biohazard. And those products, since the last time I've looked at them, I'm sure they've gotten even more progressive and better. Yeah. So those are some things to look at. And isn't this overwhelming? So we're just doing water and toileting and some food. But there's more. There's
way more. I mean, we have safety, we have lights. A small plug, correct me, tell me what you think about this. This is why I think camping is good for people, because you go outside, you realize like you don't need a, $5,000 toilet to make things happen. Like you can use a wet wipe, or F heaven, you can use leaves if you need to, like in a pinch. So that's why I think being exposed to the elements it's like this, stoic practice where you don't really feel like you could do fine with less, because you've done it before. And I think that we're so disconnected from nature that just the premise, the thought of maybe things being removed creates this fear. And that's why you see these kind of irrational purchases. I'm thinking right now, like if the water went out, Nez wouldn't know the difference. I'd be like, Nez, go in the back. You can just take a dump or go take a pee. She'd be like, okay, and we might have to
shovel.
We have to dig a hole so it's contained, because you don't want flies landing on that and going around. But so I think because we do that, like it's, if we're on a hike, she'll go in the bushes. So anyway, just small plug for there's value added in getting outside and camping and stuff, because it'll make you realize like you're going to probably be okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you have camping gear, that is the basis for your, we always call them earthquake kits, but your disaster kit, because there's a possibility that you can't stay in your home.
Great.
So my camping gear is in the garage. Don't come to my house, but my garage door, you could get through it really easy. Yeah. And I'm actually counting on that. So if we have, for us, the big earthquake, I can easily get through and get that stuff out, and I can camp in the yard if I need to.
Right. That's very smart. All my camping gear is right here. And if something happened to the house, then it might be hard to get to, right? Because the center of the house, it's an A-frame house, could collapse. So I need to make some moves and put it in the garage or the shed or something. So that's a great tip. What about other things? Light, I think, is an essential one. A lot of people don't even have a flashlight, right? And you have a story about that.
I do. We were hiking out to see where the lava hit the water on the Big Island, and I had my little 1-year-old, 2-year-old on my back, and I was dating a photographer. We went out. He was taking pictures, and it was beautiful, absolutely stunning, and we wanted to get sunset pictures. Well, everybody else was staying there with us, but this was in the middle of nowhere, and there were no streetlights. And we were the only ones. We had, I think, 3-4 flashlights between us. This was before cell phones. And that was it. And so we had about a 2-mile hike in the dark. No streetlights, just some stars in the sky, which is actually a lot easier to walk by than you might think. But nobody had a flashlight. And we had a wildfire in southern Washington, right on the Columbia River. And people were out hiking along this popular trail, and the wildfire kicked up and cut them off. Some of them were out hiking in their bathing suits, and they had nothing. Nobody had a space blanket. Some people had a little bit of extra water, but they were out hiking and they had no supplies. Wherever you are, think about, what if I had to walk home with what I have right now? Maybe you can use the stuff in your car, but maybe you can't get to the car because it's in a parking garage that you can't get to. You may have to walk all the way home. You may need to take detours that are going to take you out of your way, 3 days maybe, to get home. Wearing comfortable, reliable shoes. I know. I hate to tell you this, but you really need them. When the Twin Towers came down, the trade towers, the people who had evacuated, the men and the women far outnumbered the men as far as injuries. And it was because of the shoes. As they were evacuating down the stairs, coming out of the towers, in the landings, in the corners were drifts of women's shoes because they couldn't wear them any longer going down all those flights of stairs. So they threw their shoes to the side. But then when they got to the bottom, they had to traverse the debris field in their bare feet. And they were injured terribly and running through the streets of New York in bare feet. So make sure you at least have with you some very comfortable shoes where you could walk.
That's such a good tip. I think no one would ever consider that, right? You wear high heels, you're going out to dinner. You never know, an earthquake or something crazy thing could happen. So that's a really good tip. I used to hike barefoot, but then I realized that not everyone's going to do that, but it was decent training. So I realized like, look, if something happened to my shoes, I'd be okay for a little bit. But that's a great tip. So when I hike now, I have a knife with me, a water filter, the stereo pin. That's pretty much it. But we usually have headlamps too in the car if we need them. And the headlamps have a dual purpose. So what I'm trying to kind of like, the path I'm trying to take here is let people know that like when you invest in this stuff, it's not just like going to sit there and collect dust. These can be things you can use along the way in non-emergent situations. So the headlamps are great. I'm sure you probably have a few of those because they have the red light feature. So if you're reading in bed or whatever, you need to go to the bathroom. You don't have to turn on every light in your house. You just put on the headlamp. So I've encouraged so many people to try and get these. I don't know if they're taking me up on it, but anyway, it would be helpful in this situation because they use these very small batteries that last forever too.
Yes. I also have safety glasses that have a bifocal, so older people can read, and they've got 2 little LED lights on them.
Nice.
So that's very handy.
Totally.
What I wanted to do was show you a little bit of some of the things that you can carry with you. Yeah. And so I emptied out my purse when I got here, and I found that I actually have 2 more flashlights than I thought. So I have those. Thank goodness flashlights have gotten smaller.
Yep.
And my husband just bought me the most adorable one. It looks kind of like a little movie camera.
Oh, that's cool.
And you charge it with a USB, and it should hold its charge for a year.
Wow.
And it's got different features on it, all of which I have not learned, which I could learn it. I can turn it on. That's what you need in an emergency. But I also have the loudest whistle in the world on my keychain.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
It's literally the loudest whistle. It looks like a very big...
It is, but it's really lightweight. But if you try to blow it as loud as you can, cover your ears, you still can't because it'll hurt your ears even when they're covered. It's like that. I always wondered if that would entice a bear or chase away a bear. Would it be a really loud scream? I'm not sure. I still carry my bear spray.
That's great for women who are running and hiking by themselves.
Yes.
Because that would hopefully would scare the crap out of someone.
Oh, it'll injure them.
Yeah.
As long as you cover your ears, you'll be good.
So are you supposed to so you cover one ear? Because how do you?
Let's put it in my mouth.
And then do it.
Yeah.
And then wow.
I also have a Swiss Army knife, which I use a lot. That is so handy here. And this is just the keychain. Oh, I used to have a breathing barrier and gloves and an alcohol wipe in case I was doing rescue breaths on someone. I used to teach first aid and CPR.
Yeah.
But people don't necessarily, if you're doing CPR on someone, they have what's called agonal breaths because their body's really trying to breathe. And so they will gasp here and there. And so you will be getting some oxygenated blood to the brain. And our response time is so fast here that they will be as likely to recover probably as they would otherwise.
Interesting.
So I don't carry that on my keychain anymore.
Yeah.
Of course, you have your obligatory tissues. And a uni tool. And it's like a
that's pretty
Swiss
cool.
Army knife on steroids.
Can I see
heavy.
that thing? This thing is neat.
Yes.
Gerber. Okay. I mean, it's you have a screwdriver stuff. You got a Phillips, a flathead. Looks like a bottle opener. That's wine opener.
Corkscrew.
It's pretty good.
I don't drink, but you never know. Somebody else might. So I've got that, and actually, a pen and paper, a pad of paper, in case you need to leave notes. Left house, find me at the neighbors. This is important stuff. The lowly space blanket. When it unwraps, it's like 5 by 7 or something. I mean, it's big, but it's a little mylar blanket. It weighs almost nothing. It's very small, but it can save your life. I used to put them in my kids' backpacks when they were in elementary school, all the way through high school. My daughter went through college. She still had one in her backpack.
That's cool.
And when she goes off to work, I will bet you she still has one in her purse. Because even if it's a hot day, it will actually reflect the sun. You can use it for, it will hold in your body heat. It will keep you dry. The space blanket, who would have thought? They're like...
Can I see this one too?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, there's nothing to it.
Yes.
Wow.
It's a little mylar blanket. And they have little mylar sleeping bags also.
Would this help you if there's a fire?
No.
It would incinerate?
No.
Because there is a little fire, what do you call them?
Yeah, but the professionals have a version that includes something like this, but theirs is way different quality.
This will just trap your body heat. So if you're stranded on a mountain, this would help you not freeze to death, basically.
Yes. Or the disaster happened and now you have no heat. Or you can't be inside your house. Or you're walking home and your outerwear is not quite enough and you've got this. Or you want somebody to be able to see you.
That's good.
Yeah.
It'll reflect.
And it's so little. And the rain ponchos that you get, the little generic rain ponchos, are just a little heavier, but the container's about the same size. How easy.
Yeah.
If you put it in your kid's backpack, just tell them this is not a Superman cape. This is for emergencies. And every year, if you change backpacks, put it in the next one and reintroduce your child to the space blanket and what it's for. And you can put this in your glove box, in your car, and I keep one in my purse all the time.
Smart.
Such a simple but powerful tool.
Totally. I mean, my gosh.
So there's one of my challenges for everyone is to do something today.
Yeah.
You're getting a lot of, and you'll get a lot more information today. Yes, maybe I need one of those charging mats, a solar charging mat. I can charge my phone with a little solar charging mat. That's great. Order one if you want. Or order a bunch of these and put them everywhere. Glove box of your car, the console of the car, in everybody's purse and backpack and man bag and whatever you've got, gym bag, because it can save your life. Something so simple, but if you act, then it will be there.
Right. Yeah, and then you can build up the repertoire. I mean, this could take someone years to figure out because they're only allocating certain dollar per month. But yeah, you were going to go with a solar charger, which I think is great. I know it takes a long time, but I mean, gosh, if the power goes out, I mean, you'd have your battery on your phone would be toast, and then what? You have nothing.
And even if you're on the go, they have them as mats so that you could even attach it to your backpack. And as you're walking, the solar mat will charge whatever you have, whether it be the flashlight or the phone. And speaking of the phone, if communications go down, which can happen, when the Nisqually earthquake happened in 2001, you couldn't make a cell phone call. And what can happen is you can lose local lines and cell phone because they all use these local lines. What happens is that the phone company decides that on any given day, we use about this much for local calls and about that much for long distance calls. When you have a disaster, big emergency, everybody makes those local calls. My kid's school, my mom, whoever it is, you're calling, and even with a cell phone, they travel through the local lines too, even though you're calling someplace else. And it actually overloads the system, and the system has to reset.
It's just a bandwidth issue, basically.
Yes. Texting is easier on the system, but when you're in a panic, you're going to call. Yeah. And the long distance lines, there's your clue, your key, and it's a landline. Long distance from a landline, you're far more likely to get through. But if your family's here, you need to have someone who is long distance. Someone who is out of the region and not experiencing the same event that you are. So we're in the Seattle area. Don't call someone in Portland because they could be having the same issue. So you want somebody who's on the other side of the Cascades, a different part of the country. Let them know that you and the rest of your family here are going to call them. And this is your out-of-state or out-of-area contact. But anyway, the long-distance lines, they're more open, and you're more likely to make these calls. So let this person or family know that they are your out-of-state contact or out-of-area contact. Because it could be that you and your spouse are 3 miles away from each other, but you can't communicate unless you talk to that person.
That's very helpful to know, because you're saying those lines don't have the bandwidth issue. So that you got to relay information because you can't call locally.
Right.
That's huge. What a great tip.
Yes. And don't depend on all those phone numbers in your cell phone. Because if you drop it down a crack or it loses its charge, you don't even have those phone numbers. So and that's one of the things I do have in my purse, in my wallet actually, is a card with everybody's phone number on it so that I can call people.
Smart. 10 years ago, you knew them all by heart, but now you don't have to use them every day. So I barely know anyone's number. It's sad. I used to know all my friends' phone numbers. Like, it was fun but yeah, it's weird because we're not neurons that wire together, fire together. We're not using that anymore.
I know.
It's crazy. That is such a good tip. That right there, I mean, it's free. People can really help. Yeah, that's great. This little wrapper, I know you haven't had to use it, but for women, this is a great little thing to
Yeah, it's called a bookmark.
Yeah.
And it's weighted in the end. And my husband gave it to me. I've also got that little baton that goes.
Wow.
Yeah. I haven't had to use that either, but he's always looking out for me. But this is weighted on the end. It's kind of it's the smaller, more polished version of the golf ball in the end of a sock. So yeah, you would wrap somebody with this, and it'll hurt, and it doesn't take a lot of effort.
Yeah.
Take a self-defense class.
Smart.
It takes very little pressure to blow out somebody's knee or elbow. That'll really put them back.
Yeah.
And
Smart.
actually, that's a segue. I'm taking Mike on a ride
awesome.
here. The segue and that gun sales
Yeah.
are going way up. Ammunition sales going way up because people are now thinking, if this is a disaster and anything snowballs, I want to be prepared. And I have students many times who raise their hand and say, what about weaponry? Although I teach more out in the country, and they all have guns, and that's fine. But people do count this as part of their supplies, part of taking care of their family, part of being resilient, because not everybody's out there for your best interest. And all I can say is, I grew up with guns. Take a class, get some training, because that is one powerful tool.
Yeah. Don't take it lightly. Or
That's
don't
right.
assume that you're going to know exactly what to do because you've watched some Arnold Schwarzenegger films over the years.
Or every detective show there is, practically.
Yeah.
Unless it's British, then they don't necessarily shoot people, but all the American ones do.
And I'll just comment on the gun sales. I did get some shotgun ammunition, and it was a madhouse in there. And this was last week before. This was Monday, I believe. So I asked the guy. His name is Wade. Wade's gun store in Bellevue. I said, "Is it normally this busy?" He said, "No." He's like, "Every day, our sales are what our best months used to be. They're doing millions of dollars in sales every week." And so he's like, they can't even keep inventory. I mean, do you think Costco's bad? Because they don't have rounds and rounds. I mean, you know, people go there and load up and this and that. But yeah, so I don't know if that's scary for people or if people realize that, I don't know. I think as a man, I guess I feel more comfortable. I grew up with guns as well. You know, if things get really bad and we continue this on, the economy shut down forever, the people who are on a very tight cash flow basis are going to need food, need stuff, need supplies, and they can steal things, rob, whatever. So to me, it makes sense. It helps me sleep better, but whatever.
And there's the Robert Heinlein quote, "An armed society is a polite society."
Yeah. Crazy to
Yes.
think about.
And I think you went someplace that is the post-apocalyptic.
Yeah.
And you can be prepared without going there.
Right.
On 9/11, the man in charge of safety and security for New York City schools was named Gregory Thomas. I guess he's still named Gregory Thomas. He just isn't in charge of safety and security for New York City schools. But when the planes hit the towers, they had no plan for this. They had no plan for anything like this. They didn't even have a reunion plan for getting their kids to their parents. They had almost nothing. He said all they had, because this was September of 2001, they had done some planning in 1999 for Y2K, which didn't turn out to be anything, but they had some plans in place. And he said they were so glad they did, because that was their starting point for having any kind of plan. And there was a quote that he made in this talk that I went to where he was, and he said, "You can't plan for the unthinkable. You can only plan for the thinkable." So if you start going post-apocalyptic, that's a long trail of breadcrumbs to get there. It's just right now you're sequestered at home. So now just use your imagination and say, what if the water did go out and it was out for 4 weeks? What would I do? Or even if you can't handle that, 1 week. And now pick something else, money.
Yeah.
Because if the communications go down, I can't get to my money, and my money is all electronic. So you want to be thinking about this, and you want to be making a plan. You want to have a stash of cash in your house so that you can get to it.
What's a reasonable amount, would you say, for... I mean, it's all based upon people's lifestyle, income, but
Yes.
300, 3,000?
And how good their kids are at finding stuff.
Yeah.
So I have a friend who is in emergency preparedness. She said, I could never keep cash in my house because my son would find it all the time. But anywhere from a few hundred to a few thousand is not a bad idea. But people don't deal with cash. Mm-hmm. There are businesses now in downtown Seattle who will not take cash. They will only take a card. Yeah. And your card won't help you if the power and the other systems are down and you're stuck. You can have hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank, and it doesn't matter because you can't get to it with your little card.
Yeah.
They're on ready.gov, which is the FEMA preparedness site. Really good site. But they also have this whole section on financial preparedness for getting yourself ready, your finances. If you had to evacuate your house, what about all your bank account information? Do you own stocks and all of that? Where is that information? Is it in something that you can just grab and go? Having other things, having that bug-out bag, the preppers call it the bug-out bag, and you have things in it in case you need to run out the door. During wildfire season here, I've been known, again, don't go in my garage, but I've been known to stage things in the garage. I might not carry it in my car everywhere I drive, but I'm ready to just throw those important documents and things like that right into the back of the car and take off through the neighborhood. And with our neighborhoods, if you need to evacuate, be cognizant of the fact that our lovely neighborhoods have these winding roads, and winding roads can take you back into the path of the fire. So be thinking, if it's coming at me this way, if I climb the neighbor's fence, I can go the other way. Mm-hmm. So it's just a matter of being resourceful. But you did bring up a really important point, and that is, don't scare yourself to death.
You could, right? I mean, I can see how people start getting into this and they start thinking the world's going to come to an end. But yeah, I think it's worth. I mean, yeah. So I have cash, not a lot, like $300 in small bills. But I didn't know if there was a ratio of income to this or that. But yeah, makes sense. I mean, you would never think that things would get that bad, but whoever thought this coronavirus would have stopped the economy essentially and shut down businesses? So.
Yes, and we are not even, we're just here.
Starting.
I think we're 3 weeks into the social distancing. We doubled down on it, but I know my daughter's been working from home for 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. And my husband's just doing it. Now this is his second week. So things are slow, but we haven't seen what the economic ramifications will be. Mm-hmm. Think about 9/11. When the planes hit in Pennsylvania, the Pentagon, and the towers, air travel, we shut it down for a few days, but after that, people were so afraid to fly that it crashed the economy. Yeah. Well, they didn't crash it, but it was still in really bad shape, and it took quite a while to rebuild, and now look at what we're doing, and it's not just travel. Yeah, it's so many other things that are shut down. Mm-hmm. And that brings me to one of the emotional components that we deal with, or that I see with my friends and family, is this what's in disaster psychology called vicarious trauma, where you emotionally tap into, it could even be an avatar for this person who lost their job. It may not even be that person, but you can imagine the people who are losing their jobs, who aren't getting the paycheck, the small businesses that are going out of business, the poor families who they have family members who are sick or dying, and the dying people, and you start taking this on and running that emotional roller coaster that doesn't belong to you. And that is called vicarious trauma. For an emergency responder, they have what the ones I know call the zone, because you need to have empathy for your patients when you're dealing with them. You can't just be totally cold to them. You have to have some empathy, but you can't take on their problems.
Right.
Because that's not safe for you. So you have to find that zone, and it's always changing, because you'll run into people who remind you of something and can pull you in, but you need to stay in the zone. And really, for people who are, even with politics, the person who's always looking for the newest thing in politics to confirm their bias. And with the coronavirus, we do that too. Oh, it's not as bad. Look, we've got this. But we're always looking for it. And we're looking for, a new death. Oh, my friend's got it. Oh, something new. And it's that dopamine hit. Yeah. Don't you find that too?
Oh, yeah, because it's novelty, right? Because you don't know. It's like spinning the wheel. So it's because you don't know, like, what are the stats in Italy? Oh my gosh, is it really happening here? Are we the next Italy? Like, yeah. And so you do have to distance yourself. And I admit, like, I felt, because I have friends that our bartenders or personal trainers or whatever, that are taking a major hit because, people aren't going to the gym. The gyms are closed, right? So I definitely have a lot of that, a little bit of guilt, like feeling like, man, like that would really suck. Like, how are they going to get through? Like, this goes for a month or two. Like, my gosh, this is gonna be crazy. But you're right. It kind of comes down to that thing. Like when you're on the airplane, all the flight attendants will tell you, like, take your air mask first, right? So
Yes.
if you're unhealthy and you're stressed out and you're not able to sleep because you're taking on these emotional problems that don't belong to you, I can see how it can be damaging. Yeah.
That's right. And by diminishing your light, you don't brighten anything for anyone.
Good tip.
So you want to still shine bright and find joy in your life. Do the gratitude every morning, every night. Find 3 things and really feel that gratitude. I love it when I'm so happy and thankful for comedies. If you watch TV, watch a comedy before you go to sleep. Distract yourself. Go for a walk. All of those things. Oh, and talk to your neighbors. I mean, stand 6 feet away, but go knock on the door and just stand out there or go for a walk with them and talk with them. Yeah. Have that socialization. Community is everything. We know that in immune systems and blue zones, having that community is really important. Right. And if you're hurting, if you're having a problem, being able to connect with your neighbors and knowing which neighbors have the good resources, like they used to be an army medic or retired doctor or electrician, whatever, and being able to pool your resources with your neighbors and have that community is so important in your resilience, your ability to bounce back.
That's key. That makes a lot of sense. I have noticed the silver lining here is people that when you're out walking, there is more smiling and people are a little bit more, there is that distancing thing, which I hope that doesn't have a hangover, when this thing is all said and done, which I think it might. But anyway, people I think are being more polite to each other. I don't know.
And I just invented something. I haven't done it yet, but this will be the first place you've ever heard of it. And it's going to be the Zoom party. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a Zoom meeting because I have to have the purchased version, but I'm going to, on my Facebook page, post the meeting ID and the time and say, hey, everybody, come join me. And there will be people from elementary school to college to when I lived in Hawaii and Pennsylvania and California and relatives and everybody else. And it'll be so fun to have all those people basically in the same room with me, a Zoom party. You heard it here.
Right. Parties in the 21st century are getting interesting, right?
That's right.
Yeah. No, that's a great idea. I mean, just seeing someone virtually is way better than nothing at all. And you can giggle and laugh and feel like you're connected.
Yes.
It's really good.
That's the way we were when my daughter first went off to college, Skyping. Oh, yes. Big deal.
She went to Western?
Yes.
Okay. I went there too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't all that far away, but still.
Still, it's hard. You have your life down here and stuff.
That's right.
Yeah, what else you got there, Nancy?
Oh, I don't know. I've got a list here. Oh, getting training so that you can help people.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. Have you taken first aid? Have you taken first aid recently? That's helpful because you know kind of what you're looking at and how you can help.
Right.
And being able to look stuff up is really important. This doesn't look right. It's out of shape. Look things up or look it up online. But having that training, and the FEMA course, Community Emergency Response Team, otherwise known as CERT, is also phenomenal training. Take a mountaineering or wilderness first aid class, because if it's a disaster, it means you might be on your own for quite a while, which is just like some kind of wilderness incident where you would be on your own for quite a while and dealing with someone who might be in shock. I know how to do it for the short time until EMS arrives, but what's it going to look like 3 days later?
Yeah.
And so getting that information, I think, is very important.
Totally.
So that you can take it to the next level and you can help people. You can help yourself, help your family. Right. And when you take these classes, whether it be first aid or CERT or mountaineering, whatever it is, because you're not a medical professional, there's no call to act. If you look at a situation or you look at someone and you say, I'm not going to be safe here, there is no reason you need to help them. Mm-hmm. It's nice if you do, and as long as you're safe.
Right. So I think it's important to qualify that because I think people fear the legalities there. And oh my gosh, if this person is hurt and I do something and they get more hurt, am I going to be liable? So yeah, that is kind of an interesting little can of worms, right?
Well, there's the Good Samaritan Act. Every state has a version of a Good Samaritan Act. And basically it says that as long as you didn't cause the incident, that as long as you are reasonable and responsible and you stay within your training, which means that if you always wanted to do that fancy tracheotomy with the pen, no, because it is not within your training.
Right.
Don't do it. You won't be covered. And as long as, like I said, you're reasonable, you're responsible, you stay within your training, you didn't cause the incident, it means that if you get sued, you won't lose because you've got this at your back. But it also means you're far less likely to be sued because the law will back you up on this.
Yeah.
But it means that if there's been a car accident, you didn't grab somebody by the arm and yank them out of the car unless
The car's sinking in a
there's
river.
a fire or something like that. If they're going to get hurt worse or killed, then yes, reasonably move them out of there. Other than that, leave them and wait for EMS.
Yeah. That's a really good tip. And I think, the probability of getting injured in the outdoors is higher anyway. So just someone like people listen to this hike and camp. I mean, it makes sense to do something outside to learn just the basics.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Getting some training.
That's great.
I think we might have covered everything.
It's amazing. I mean, if we would have done this conversation pre-COVID-19, people would be like, next. I'm like, come on, like really? But now it's like, wow, this is real. This could happen. Like we've seen just like a glimpse of like what's possible.
Yes. And I think before this, nobody really took that. I mean, if you took my class, you knew it. But I don't think people really thought about the pandemic. The last big pandemic that we had, I mean, big, was in 1918. So it was about 100 years ago. The Spanish flu took out 50 to 60 million people worldwide. That was huge. We are not 100 years ago. Our medical is way different. Our population is way different. And so we aren't in a world war. What they were doing was they were calling up tens of thousands of young men and sending them down for their physical and putting them through basic training in troop ships and troop trains and transports. And someone there had a flu. And one of the problems with the flu or the virus like COVID is the fact that there's an incubation period. There's a time when you have contracted it, but you're not showing symptoms, but you're shedding this virus and you're contagious and you don't know it. One of the stories of that somebody had a cocktail party in Seattle at the very beginning of this, and someone at the cocktail party had the virus, and nobody knew. The person with the virus didn't even know, and a bunch of people who were at this party ended up getting the virus, even though they didn't know.
It's a bummer.
So having that incubation period, that's why I'm not sick, I'm fine. Really?
You don't really know. Yeah. I think there is that perception going around, but the longer that we delay the inevitable, which is social distancing, the longer this thing's going to drag on. So I think it's important that we all practice this and so forth, which I think people are getting the message finally.
And King County, the county that Mike lives in, during the Spanish flu, it was one of the first cities to buy into social distancing. I mean, church was canceled, school was canceled, everything. And this was 100 years ago. And King County, actually, for the size, fared far better than other cities of same size.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Wow.
So social distancing does work.
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah.
And
go
in
ahead.
China, the divorce rate is way high.
Right now.
Because they've been sheltering for a long time. Okay. It's gotten so high that the Chinese government not only makes you fill out an application, but you need to make an appointment. They're just trying to drag that out because everybody's in close quarters and
Right.
divorce rate's really high.
I can see the stress. Yeah, I can see I mean, you add on like our bucket of stress is like at the top. And so you just bake in a little bit more from relationship stress. And I could see how it could be the straw that breaks the camel's back.
Or the baby boom.
Right. Yeah.
You can still get to the drugstore and get what you need.
It's crazy.
But 9 months from now, mark my word.
Right. So what are you growing right now? I mean, has this situation pivoted like what you decide to put in your garden?
No, not really. It changed what I put in my freezer because we've just shifted to the carnivore. And so now we've got all the tons of meat in the freezer waiting.
When you say tons, like 100 pounds or something?
Oh, at least,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, we got 3 briskets, full-on briskets. We've got 10 pounds of bacon because you can get them in the 5-pound containers. This is for my husband. And ground lamb and duck and you name it. It's in my freezer.
A lot of stuff, eh? For me, I think I'm going to do more beets and carrots and stuff this season. What would be, if someone does have a small garden, what would be some things that you can preserve that might give you a little bit more energy? What would you suggest?
Well, one of the things that can last for the season, it stays early and it stays late, is dark leafy greens. Those dark leafy greens are so good for you. They're packed with fiber. Who would have thought? The Swiss chard, kale can be a little rough on the digestion. But even if you steam these things, mustard greens, whatever you have, even a small affinity for, grow them, put them in things, put them in your smoothie if you do smoothies. But they are so packed with nutrition. They're incredibly nutrient dense. And it's the basis of the Wahls protocol, which reverses autoimmunity many times. And the dark leafy green, I plan to be growing a lot of those for the food bank this year.
Oh yeah, you were saying that. That's cool. I love the mustard greens and the ruby streaks. Or is it steaks? Ruby streaks?
Ruby streak, I think.
Streak. Okay. Look, I know you and I have pivoted more towards a more carnivorous style approach, but during that season when they're available, I still love those things. And I don't eat pounds like I used to because it was kind of this more is better kind of thing. But a salad with some protein, I think, to me is very satiating. And they taste good. I just love the bitterness that they offer.
And with the dark leafy greens to also have the fat with it, olive oil. And I love algae oil,
nice.
Culinary algae oil. It's like melted butter. Just add a little bit of salt.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Where do you get that?
Down at the local grocery store.
Really?
Or you can order it online. But it's Thrive.
Okay.
Let's look up Culinary algae oil because algae, what we've had in your podcast is algae, is it a critter? Is it a plant? It's kind of in between. But it's the omega-3s.
The DHA must be through the roof.
Yeah, you're cutting out the middleman.
Yeah.
No fish involved. We're going right to the source.
That's so awesome. Backyard chickens, are you going to do them again, or are you kind of done with those?
I have a neighbor who has chickens who I help feed with weeds and seeds and stuff from the garden.
Oh, cool.
And so she keeps me supplied, and I don't have to worry about, although she's got bantams. Bantam hens, which are the small ones, but they're really feisty. And she said ever since she saw on her, people who love chickens put cameras in their coops. And ever since the little bantam went after the rats, they haven't had rats.
Wow, they go after rats. Bantams.
Yes.
I want to peg them for a rat killer, but.
I know.
Wow.
And there's also a big one. Oh, there's this big, beautiful one that goes after mice and rats.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've heard about that. There's different breeds that are really good at that.
Buckeye chicken.
Ones, they'll go after it. That's good. It's good. We still have roosters. We have 2. It's funny. My neighbors have not really been complaining. They've been a lot nicer to us. I think knowing that there's roosters, people are like, okay, well, grocery store is having a hard time keeping chicken in stock, fresh chicken. So maybe I won't complain about the rooster.
Yes. Just get a little motion sensor out there.
I know, yeah. Well, they compete in the morning. Having 2, we'll go down to 1 because they compete and it gets kind of loud.
What is it like when you've slaughtered your chickens and you've eaten them? And commercial chickens are only a few weeks old.
Yeah.
It's even before they've started laying eggs, they kill them and process them.
Wow.
So they're not quite a year, but they're big, hardy chickens. Yeah. But that's why you get the texture and the flavor you get. So I'm curious to know with the older chicken, because those are referred to as soup chickens, because they can be kind of stringy and stuff like that. What have you found eating the older chicken?
We slow cook them. So it is a little bit, yeah. But I don't eat chicken at the store, so I don't really have a lot to compare it to. Yeah, so I think just the older the animal, the tougher it is. The change the way that you cook it, like low and slow. That's just our approach. Yeah, even our pigs were a little bit older. They were 17 months, which compared for a pig, I mean that's a lot. Most pigs last 5-6 months and then they're slaughtered, right? So there was some concern, and these were boars, concerned that they would be really boary and all the testosterone, but they taste pretty good. So. Anyway.
That's fantastic. I'm so proud of you, Mike.
We'll see. That was kind of, it's tough because 17 months is a long time to have a little animal, and they're kind of like little dogs for us. But they had their purpose, and now it's gonna be great for growing berries, and they're just little roto-rooters in the back. You know how they are, pigs.
Well, FEMA has an online school. The Emergency Management Institute has an independent studies program with probably hundreds now classes that you can take online, and you can even print at your little FEMA certificate at the end. It goes good on a resume. It's good in your employee file. But the classes can be just an introduction to the CERT, Community Emergency Response Team. But they also have livestock in disasters, pets in disasters, children in disasters. That is not in order of priority. And so there's a lot of information out there through the Emergency Management Institute, ready.gov. Check to see if you have an emergency supplier.
Yeah.
Someone who makes who sells supplies in your town, not far from here, next to Marymore Park. Prepare Smart.
Oh.
Even though they don't have a storefront, but what you can do is place your order and then do a will call and go pick it up. And it's so nice not to have to pay shipping on water.
Right. That's awesome because it's heavy as heck, eh?
Yes, and emergency food will last, a lot of them, 5 years. They're heater meals so that you can eat warm food when everything is out. They have gluten-free. They have all kinds of allergen-free.
Wow.
So be sure to check it out and have a stash. I just bought a stash of lamb jerky.
Oh, yeah. It's good to have. Totally good to have.
Just so you don't have to cook something or open a can or that kind of thing.
Preparednesseducator.com is your new website, yeah?
Yes, it is.
And you're on Instagram as well, Ever the Student.
Ever the Student. And
awesome.
Facebook is Ever the Student.
Good. Yeah.
Because I love learning things.
No, it's good. You're always learning new, diverse things and having an open mind. I was a little bit nervous at first with all the carnivore podcasts, how you would take those as a gardener, right? But you start to hear this information. I think it's great to have an open mind, and so it's changed your behaviors in a different way, and I think your health is favored for those changes. So I think it's good for people to open up their mind, which is awesome. But you've heard the final question. Just very curious, Nancy, your morning routine. So as a practitioner, an educator, an influencer in your community, what do you do? Like, how do you set up your day for success? What do you do?
Well, during the night, I have a notebook next to my bed, and it's clipped to a page that has nothing written on it and a pen clipped there. So during the night, when I have a dream and I wake up after it, I grab it and I write notes in the dark. Hard to read it, I know, later. But I make notes so that the next morning I can write up my dreams, and then I look up the meaning of the things that I've dreamed about. And it is just so cool how your subconscious is talking to you. And Aisling Dream, AISLING, Dream Interpretation Dictionary. Wow. And it is just phenomenal. It's like tapping in to what your subconscious, and if you believe in more energetic things, could be your guides, your guardian angels speaking to you through your dreams. But really, that's how I start out my day.
That's awesome.
Is with that.
Have you felt like since you've been recording your dreams, you're getting better at it? Is it one of these things? Because some people will say, I think I remember my dream, but I forgot. Like, is it one of these things like once you get in tune with this, it's like working out, you get better and better?
Oh, it's so hard to get to sleep sometimes. It's like, oh, I'm going to have dreams tonight. I wonder what it's going to be. It's like a free movie made just for you. Yeah. It is so cool. And yes, because you put some weight to it, so you start remembering it. And my problem is now I know enough of the dream symbols that I'm going, wait a minute. It's talking about the floor, and the floor is my digestion. Shouldn't be talking about the floor. Yeah. And then I wake myself up and try to analyze the dream.
Interesting, eh? Yeah. I've heard of that, like people being cognizant of their dreams. I'm not there yet. Like while they're dreaming. Like I'll wake up if something bad happens, but I don't wake up because I know that I'm dreaming. But I've heard that.
And sometimes you can put yourself back into that dream and you can fix things. You can turn on the lights because it's too dark or whatever it is. It's icy. Melt the ice and keep going with the dream.
Wow. I've never been able to do that, but that sounds amazing. Okay. So you're kind of desert island, herb, nutrient, botanical, something you've heard many people share over the years, curcumin, fish oil, magnesium, vitamin D. I mean, there's been a range of things, right? There's one thing you're bringing with you. The house is burning down. Food-wise, what would it be?
Red meat. Have to be red meat. I feel so much better. I'm sated. I do eat some vegetables, but the fewer vegetables I eat and the more red meat I eat, the better I feel. My brain works better. My body works better. And you definitely stay keto. And so everything is better.
That's awesome. Do you have a cut that you like? I mean, do you like brisket? You already said that, but a lot of people are ribeye people. Are you, or what specific cut would you run off
I
with?
wish I could eat beef and pork, but they don't agree with my physiology. But lamb. Lots of lamb.
Yeah.
throw it in the slow cooker, in the pressure cooker, in the oven. Ground lamb, meatballs, ground lamb. Pick the wild berries, the little bitter berries, and put them in meatballs or meatloaf. Very good stuff.
We love lamb too. Nez, it's her favorite lamb. The taste is amazing. Are they hard to raise and grow?
Actually, that is to our benefit, is that they're so particular. With a cow, you can mess with a cow. You can feed a cow all
Skittles
kinds of
and crap.
stuff, and it'll still grow up to be a cow that you can eat. But sheep are really hard to raise. They're very particular. Even on a good day, a sheep can die. But you mess around with a sheep, it'll die on you. And so you can pretty much bet, although don't hold me to it legally, that a lamb or eating lamb, and it's not the little kidding lamb that you're eating, it's a yearling. So it's still a good size sheep that is being slaughtered. And so, yes, it should be theoretically cleaner than
out in nature and all that.
Yes.
Yeah. I've heard that it's much harder to manipulate their diet.
Yes.
They like their grass, and you screw with that, they're like, I'm not gonna eat that.
Yes.
Which, as a farmer, you get paid by weight, right? So if they're not eating the crap, then it doesn't serve you. So
Yes.
yeah. So we have a lot of health issues in our society. If you were to bump shoulders with a politician, obviously right now we have this imminent infectious disease, but that, notwithstanding, what do you think is kind of like where could we affect things top down?
Tell people the truth about insulin resistance and diabetes, carbohydrates, sugar, blood sugar levels, and be able to truly educate people. I still meet people who say, my doctor says I need to have 150 grams of carbs every day for my brain.
Around here, people say that?
Yes.
No way.
Yes, they still believe it. So if we could possibly teach people that they do not need those carbs, that they can fulfill their body's nutrition so much better, so much more efficiently, so less destructive in other ways. If we could do that, oh my goodness, we could change the world as it is now.
Well, it's very important for this conversation too, with this COVID-19, pandemic. If you look at the mortality data from Italy and Wuhan, China, not a surprise to probably you and I, but individuals with type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease, which is related to hyperinsulinemia, high blood pressure, guess what? They're majority, 79% of the people that have severe disease in the ICU, intubated, etc., and a majority of the deaths are these folks. And so no one's talking about that. It's wash your hands, social distancing. Okay, I get it. But what about all the other things? People have to eat. They will eat, So yeah, I think that's a really good message. And I think it starts young. I think, that we need to instill that indelibly, ink that in children's brains, because look, our dietary, it's not like, oh, you're 18, so then all of a sudden you're going to start eating healthy if you haven't done that as a kid. So this could be something I'm trying to get at, that a policymaker could help.
That's right.
Their constituents.
And one of the things that flew off the shelves, bread and pasta.
Flour too.
Oh my goodness.
I heard Costco's are out of flour.
Oh, my grocery store is. Oh my goodness.
Come on.
Can you find stuff that has less nutritional value? Maybe macaroni and cheese. I don't know. But you want to go nutrient dense. That's where your immune system goes. This is where your whole body, you can be robust with a nutrient dense diet, whether it's meat, whether it's plants, but nutrient dense. And that is definitely not. But yet people went for it.
I think they were like, oh, I'm going to be stuck at home. I can bake cookies or something. I don't know what the thought process was, but it's crazy. Anyway, Nancy, really appreciate you coming on the show, sharing all this amazing insights for people. Preparednesseducator.com is your website. I'll put that in the show notes as well. You got a book right here. We'll put in the Unthinkable.
The Unthinkable: Who Survives When Disaster Strikes and Why. Phenomenal book. Absolutely incredible. And it looks at why people are reacting, like the people hoarding the bread and the toilet paper and the hand sanitizer. But also it's, the airplane crash or the fire and 3 people get in there and block that door and no one can get out. And what happens in your brain and the hypothalamus and the studies they've done with twins and PTSD and whether it has to do with the shape of the brain, and just phenomenal book and great examples. That's awesome. The woman came down out of the Twin Towers to evacuate. She got to the debris field and there were body parts and she went blind.
Blind?
She went blind. Her brain said, this is too much information. It's too horrible. You're blind. And that was it. Somebody had to lead her away from the building Otherwise, she would have died. So, great book.
It's good to know. Yeah, you would think like, come on, come on, what are you doing? Like, keep moving. Is she permanently blind, this woman?
No.
Okay, it was whatever, a couple days.
Yeah.
Whew. Wow. I mean, it's like some of those people that have regressed memories of like being very traumatically abused. They don't remember that. They don't feel that because it's just like too much. You blow a circuit. And so the brain says, no, we don't want you to protect you. That's wow.
Or people with 3rd-degree burns. Those deep burns, significant 3rd-degree burns. I've known 2 people who've had significant ones, and both of them said it didn't hurt. A, because the nerve endings get damaged, but B, because the brain is so overwhelmed that it just goes, we're not going to make this hurt anymore.
Our brains are amazing. Crazy. Well, appreciate you coming on the show. Hope you all enjoyed it. Show notes will be linked below, books and links to our backyard garden school as well, which is an amazing resource for you if you want to learn how to grow herbs, botanicals, tubers, and how to keep pests out of your garden, how to compost, a lot of really good stuff. So
That's right.
Really appreciate you coming over, Nancy, and keep up the great work.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you all for listening, and we'll catch you on a future episode down the road.